Welcome back to this discussion on the power sector reforms. This short video would introduce you to the Electricity Act 2003, and this is a very interesting act. I have in mind many interesting things to tell you. In brief, this is a very vast and interesting subject, and especially for those who are interested in the reforms of the economy and reforms of the power sector, not simply the technical stuff. The objective is to discuss on the power sector reforms, where I would be highlighting the background of what this power sector reforms is. And in that context, I would try to explain you the Electricity Act 2003. Because it's very important for us to understand the background. Simply knowing the parameters or the salient features of the act would not be very interesting. So the idea is to give you sufficient background and then explain what is the Electricity Act 2003. I would require 2 videos on this Electricity Act 2003. So this you should consider as a part 1 of the discussion on Electricity Act 2003. We all know that since independence, especially if you are following the policy matters and reading a lot of newspapers, you would understand that from 1991, we had a different or radical shift in terms of economic policies. What was called as a socialist framework from 1947 up to 1980s, and especially because of the financial crisis and because of the need to borrow loans from International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, Indian economy was subjected to certain constraints. I mean to say, we now were no longer independent to have our own policy prescriptions. We were supposed to reform our economy as per the prescriptions of the lenders. You all know that if you borrow money from a bank, the bank would say, give some conditions. Similarly, when the Indian government borrowed certain money from the International Monetary Fund, it was supposed to reform itself. Reform in the sense, what sense, that we'll discuss shortly. Okay, so up to 1991, if I want to break up the economy, the timeline since independence. So from 1947 onwards up to 1991, we had a different kind of economy. And from 1991 till date, we have a different kind of economic framework. So up to 1991, what was the salient feature of the Indian economy? It was basically driven by public sector undertakings. The ownership of the major infrastructural projects, be it coal, you know about Indian coal, be it about steel and heavy manufacturing units like BHEL, Bharat Heavy Electrical Limited, and power sector, obviously. All this was under government ownership. Okay, so that was up to 1991. In 1991, you know that Dr. Manmohan Singh was the finance minister and P.V. Narasimha Rao was the Prime Minister of India. They embraced what is called as the LPG policies. LPG means L for liberalization, P for privatization, and G for globalization. So these policies, okay, they were implemented. You also must understand that this was also the year when the Soviet Russia, it collapsed, its economic collapsed, and the economy which was under the government ownership, that was privatized by Mikhail Gorbachev. And India was dependent on the socialist bloc, which was led by Soviet Russia. So this is also one context we need to understand of these reforms. And there was no superpower left now except the United States of America. So the framework also, the global framework also changed. So this is what we need to understand clearly, that it is not simply that in isolation we were embracing what is called as the reforms. So these reforms were encouraged by the multilateral lending organizations, and this reforms, the crux was that we need to encourage the private ownership. Okay, and in order that there are private investments in the power sector, we need to change the framework, the philosophy on which the power sector was operating today. So what was the philosophy of the power sector? So the philosophy of the power sector up to 1991 was that it would be a non-profit kind of entity. It means that the government would be operating the power sector. It would be owning the generation, it would be owning the transmission, and it would be owning the distribution also. Okay, so generation, transmission, and distribution would be owned by the government. The power sector would be under the government control, be it a central government and the entities like NTPC, National Thermal Power Corporation, or at the state level you had MSEB, for example, in Maharashtra State Electricity Board. So this was the framework. Okay, but because of the capital crisis, because the government had no money, they started with the privatization process. So first step was in 1991 when the government started what is called as a project on IPP. IPP means independent power producers. In short, the private sector was encouraged to invest in the generation plant. Okay, so huge companies were invited to make investments in the power sector, and this process started in 1991, as I said. A major breakthrough in the policy was in 1996 when the Orissa Reform Act was passed, and under this act, regulatory commission was set up by the state government of Orissa, and the power sector of Orissa, okay, the Orissa State Distribution Company, this Orissa State Electricity Board was trifurcated. Trifurcated means it was divided into three parts. One was the generation company, second was the transmission company, and third was the distribution company. So this is called as what they used to call as unbundling. Okay, so this is the start. Okay, this is the start of what we will ultimately come to the Electricity Act. So this reform, as they said, was basically first was to unbundle the three. This was passed in 1996. And in 1998, an important act, okay, at the central level was passed, which is called as the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission Act. So, Central Electricity Regulatory Commission Act is what? So, it was an act under which regulatory commissions were to be set up. Now, regulatory commissions means what? Why do we require regulations? So, earlier the model was the government is owning everything, and government is regulating everything. So the ownership as well as regulation was in the hands of the government. When you want to introduce privatization, then we need to have a separate model wherein the ownership would be with private, or it could also be with the government, but the regulation would be independent of the ownership. So that was the philosophy behind the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission Act. Okay, so that and the privatization of Orissa and the setting up of the regulatory commission in other states, you will see that this is the direction in which the power sector is moving. Okay, so what we understand is clearly, if you want to understand what exactly is the background of the Electricity Act, you need to understand that the need of the Electricity Act was basically the financial need. It was the capital crunch, okay, which was driving this Electricity Act, and because the government was left with little money to invest again in the power sector, or that is what it was said, we needed private investments, both the Indian private investment as well as the foreign direct investments from abroad. And this investments, if it was to come, then the companies which invest, they need to make certain profit. Earlier, the power sector was a non-profit entity, but if you want to have a private investment, or both the Indian private sector and the foreign direct investment to come in, then they would want certain profit on the investment they are making. And if you want to make profit, then you need to make sure that the electricity sector is run on the professional grounds. What is known as professional grounds means a profit making ground. Okay, so that you can recover the money from the users, from the consumers, and that money the investors would take it as a profit. Okay, so that was the need. That was the need of reform, and that was why the regulatory commissions were set up. In 2003, finally, Electricity Act was passed. So Electricity Act 2003 means the act came in 2003. So what was that before? As I said, that the background was you were first a state electricity company, you were a central electricity company, and now you want to make private investors to come in. Okay, so earlier there was an Indian Electricity Act 1910, which was governing the power sector. After independence, so in 1910, Britishers were ruling us, wherein the private companies were in the electricity sector. After independence, the government of India under Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, he thought that the electricity should be under the state government control. So he passed the act which is called the Electricity Supply Act 1948, and in this Electricity Supply Act 1948, the government was to own the electricity infrastructure, and this was actually a good decision. If you look at the spread of the power, the reach of the electricity, when Britishers were ruling us, the electricity was not accessed by many people. It was concentrated only in few cities, and most of the people, both in the cities as well as all of them in the rural areas, they were not having electricity. But after this Electricity Supply Act 1948, and after the creation of the state electricity boards and what is called as the Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, and big national companies which invested in the hydro, thermal, all sort of electricity power plants, we had an abundance of electricity supply. Okay, so this is an important act, Electricity Supply Act 1948. But this act, as well as the act which I mentioned earlier, that is the Electricity Regulatory Commission Act 1998, which was formulated in order to encourage the privatization. All these acts were superseded, means replaced by Electricity Act 2003. So this we need to understand that all these acts, the three acts which were governing the electricity sector, were replaced by Electricity Act 2003. So Electricity Act 2003, which is a 100-page document with 185 sections and in 18 parts, this act is replacing the Indian Electricity Act 1910, the Electricity Supply Act 1948, and Electricity Regulatory Commission Act 1998. So this is a radical departure from the way the electricity sector was to be governed. Now, what are the salient features of this act? There are many features, but I would cover only few of them in this video. So one was that the generation was to be delicensed. Means what? As I said, that basically electricity would require generation of the electricity in the power plants, the transmission of the electricity from the power plants up to the substations, and the distribution up to the distribution from the substations to the consumers. Okay, so these three functions, that is generation, transmission, and distribution, they were being done by the state electricity boards. Okay, in collaboration with the central owned power plants. Okay, so the ownership was both with the central government of generation as well as with the state electricity boards. Now this generation, okay, required the clearance of the Central Electricity Authority, which is called the CEA earlier. Okay, now the Electricity Act 2013 says that this would no longer be applicable. It means that the thermal generation would not require the clearance from State Electricity Authority. What it means is that the private sectors can easily invest and get the generation of electricity via the thermal route. Only the projects which involve large hydro, and because you know that hydro generally it would span across number of states. For example, We talked about Sardar Sarovar project, wherein Gujarat was involved, Maharashtra was involved, and Madhya Pradesh was involved. So such kind of projects where the river flows through number of states. So these projects would require a clearance. So that was one of the important. This is one of the important feature of the Electricity Act. The second is, so that is the meaning of generation is delicensed, means no longer license is required from the Central Electricity Act to set up the thermal generation plant. Okay, this is one of the features. So why is that so? Because you want the private sector to invest in the thermal power plants. The second is that setting up of captive generation does not require any permission. So what is captive generation? So captive generation means, you know that earlier, and even today also, you'll find that the generation is at far off. Okay, means for example, in Nashik, there is a power plant at Eklahari. Okay, and that electricity is transmitted. Okay, if an industry in Ambad, for example, in Nashik or Satpur industrial zone, they want to set up their own power plant. Okay, by using a diesel generator or solar PV, then they would no longer require a permission. So that is the meaning of setting of captive power generation. Captive power generation means generation of the electricity at your own industrial setup. Okay, so that would not require any permission as per the Electricity Act. Okay, so this captive generation can be taken up by a group, it can be taken up by society to meet their needs, and they can be located off-site also. Okay, so that is the important feature. So what does this feature do? This feature would encourage smaller producers, okay, to set up their power plants. For example, Ankur gasifiers would be able to set up a power plant in a certain village. Okay, or some industry in Ambad would be able to set up a power plant in their own industry to not to export the electricity but to meet their own needs. That is the meaning of setting up of the power plant. So it does not require any permission. No longer permission is required from the government to set up this power plant. So this is one of the feature of the Electricity Act. The next feature is about the transmission of the electricity. Okay, so the transmission of the electricity would be, that is load dispatch, how much electricity needs to be dispatched from a place to the other place. So this decisions would be taken by the central government. So that was kept, the monopoly of the government or the control of the government in transmission was kept. It was supposed to act as a coordinator. Okay, coordinator. So this is one of the important feature of the Electricity Act. And private companies were now allowed, because earlier it was the government which was building the transmission lines, but now the private companies can now build transmission lines for the captive use as well as common use. So you see that in all these four cases, the theme is you need to make the things easier for the private investments. Okay, that is the whole idea. An important feature which I mentioned when I talked about the Orissa case is that the state governments would now unbundle that state electricity boards. Okay, so unbundling means what? As I explained in case of Orissa, what they did was that the companies, and now you know that in case of Maharashtra also, you will find that it is no longer MSEB. It is not Maharashtra State Electricity Board. So what you have is the Mahavitran, which is it is a distribution company. You have Mahatranscom, which is the Maharashtra Transmission Company, and Mahagenco, which is a generation company. So you see that the generation, transmission and distribution now are the separate companies. There are three separate companies, and each company is managing its own finance. Generation company would sell its electricity to the other company, transmission company. Transmission company would sell it to the distribution company. Now, why is this done? You try to understand that. If a private investor has to come, now the private investor, if he has to come with a limited capital, then he won't be able to compete with the government. Okay, so he might come into the distribution sector. He might invest in the distribution sector, and he would deal with the transmission company of the government. It could be government owned or private owned. So that is the idea. So unbundling also has to do with privatization. Okay, so the company formation, making them as companies and unbundling it is to do with the corporatization of the power sector. And as I said, because the investments are to come from the private sectors, So there has to be certain regulation, and the regulatory commissions are to be independent of the government control, in the sense that they were supposed to be looking at the finances, okay, and not simply the non-profit objective, which was earlier the case. So this regulatory commissions, for example, at the central level, it was Central Electricity Regulatory Commission. At the state level, it is the State Electricity Regulatory Commission. For example, in Maharashtra, we have MERC, Maharashtra Electricity Regulatory Commission. So all these commissions, okay, all these commissions were to be in place because of the Electricity Act, and their job was to look at the different issues, including the tariff compliance. Okay, and if there are some disputes, okay, and because they are supposed to be a regulatory commission, so they would be giving certain orders, certain decisions. So these decisions, if we are not, if the consumer, especially the industrial consumer, is not happy with it, he can approach the appellate tribunal for further appealing, just as you approach the higher courts if you are not happy with the judgment. Similarly, if you are not happy with the decisions of the State Electricity Regulatory Commissions, SERC, and Central Electricity Regulatory Commission, that is CERC, and consumer can approach the higher authority, and the higher authority is the appellate tribunal. Okay, so you see that these mechanisms have been put in place where the grievance redressal of the consumers and the major companies would be taken care of by a separate regulatory commission authority. Okay, and the government was not supposed to interfere in that. Okay, again, as I said, because the power sector was to now operate in courts professionally. Okay, so this provisions like there has to be a strict provision to deal with power theft, right? The subsidies, now subsidies, earlier what was there was that the agricultural sector was given more subsidy. The domestic consumers were also subsidized, especially the poor consumers, and the industrial consumers were to bear the higher tariffs in order to give the subsidies to the poorer sections of the society. So this principle is called as cross subsidization. Okay, now because the framework has changed, the philosophy has changed, and the power sector has to now run on the commercial lines because of the Electricity Act 2003. So the idea was to eliminate the subsidy, right? Meter the electricity and operate the power sector on the commercial principles. Okay, and the philosophy is that because if there would be competition, there would be efficiency, the things would improve for all. Now, what has happened? What would be the impact on the agricultural sector? What would be the impact on the poor section of the society, or even the middle class? That would be a different kind of discussion. And whether the power sector should be run on the profit basis, that also could be a discussed. Okay, but I'm trying to explain you the features. Okay, so one of the feature is about the tariff. So this tariff means what? Tariff means the cost of the electricity which we purchase from the power sector. Okay, the electricity bill which we get, that is what is the tariff. Okay, so per unit of electricity, what is the tariff? So you know that the tariff is the lowest for the agricultural consumer, rupees per kWh. It is highest for the industrial and commercial consumers, rupees per kWh. Okay, so these tariffs are different, and they are different for different categories of consumers because of cross subsidization. So this would be eliminated, and the subsidy would be reimbursed by the government coffers. That was the idea, so that the private investors would not suffer. Because if a private investor has to come and if he has to subsidize, then he would say that I am not coming. Okay, I am not investing. So you better remove the subsidies, and then I would come and invest, and I would get my profits. So that is the entire philosophy. And metering is also an important issue, because if the electricity is not metered, then we will not know where exactly the theft is happening. And if the investor is not knowing where the theft is happening, then he might suffer the losses. Okay, so whole of these ideas, the different tariffs for the time of the day tariff means what? Time of the day tariff means, especially when your electricity demand is less, the charges of the electricity is less. If the demand is more, the charges of the electricity is more. It means that if in the morning, most of the consumers are demanding electricity, you keep the tariff higher, so that some of the consumers will shift their load to night time, for example. Okay, and that would help us in managing the load effectively. So these are different techniques, okay, which are used in the power sector. So all this now would come because of the Electricity Act. There are many other features which I would cover in the next video. I hope you have understood the background and certain important features of the Electricity Act. As I am saying, we need to keep in mind the philosophy of this reform. The philosophy is that the power sector, just as the other sectors of the economy like hospitals, education, etc., they were run on the non-profit principles, considering that India was poor and most of the people they cannot afford all these essential commodities. But since 1991, we have adopted a different model wherein the users are to pay, means the consumers, if they can afford, they pay. If they cannot afford, they should not uh, take those services. So that is the entire philosophy of the Electricity Act 2003. What are the implications of this that we would discuss in some other video, right? And I would make another video, part 2 of this. I'll stop here. Thank you very much. Please let me know your feedback. Subscribe to my channel and give your feedbacks on that. Thank you.